Hello and welcome into the SorareData Football Strategy Show. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined today by a very special guest who's going to give us all the answers to everything we should be doing in the winter so that we can be prosperous in the spring. Frip, also known as SorareUSA. Frip, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
The thing that I mentioned about your mic seems to have started again.
Oh no, is it coming correctly?
I don't know what the issue is.
I literally purchased this. This is the first time. Let me. Oh boy. How about now?
I think you're kind of echoing now. Strangely enough, of course, this is the stream that actually works, I think.
Man, you spend all this money on a nice microphone. Is it not?
It's like, yeah, just it's just very crackly. Andy said you should just go all the way.
Yeah, I have the headphone mic. All right, too. All right. Literally, Quinny this morning was like,
Live from the spaceship.
much better.
Better, yes.
Yeah. Literally this morning, I hear Quinny say, it's just one of those days. Here we are.
From the fact that this stream has already lasted much longer than the one earlier today. We'll see. But Andy, thanks for that. Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. Sorry about that.
You could be really dramatic and like smash it against the wall behind you, but
can I get a refund?
But then it's tough to refund. Get a refund for that. Anyway, today we're going to talk about basically the MLS offseason. We won't just stick to MLS. We also may not just stick to the America region. But I heard on, I think it was the Sorare Ramble last week, where they were like, hey, is it a good time to buy Champion America cards? And they were like, of course it is. Everything's so cheap. And I was like, man, I did this exact same thing last year. And by the time the leagues came back, I was like, hey, I'm not rich. What happened? And so I wanted to go through some of that because you've been tracking a lot of the MLS team announcements of like players that they're letting go and those like, hey, we're hoping to bring him back. And the one that kind of jumped out at me that I was like, we need to talk to Frip was Nathan from San Jose, because Nathan was so good and then got injured, but everyone's like, but he's so good. And then all of a sudden now he's a free agent, or I don't know if he's actually a free agent, but he is not a contracted player from the Earthquakes anymore. So let's start with like that like, can you explain sort of what happens with MLS now that buying anyone from MLS has a little more risk than not?
Yeah. So, I was looking for the mic here. We're adjusting. So
you can pretend.
Yeah, actually, I'll just hold this and it'll give you the visual effect. It's kind of like looking at nice food and it just tastes better. So essentially in MLS, right, because it's a single entity league, it's kind of unique that the players sign contracts with the league that then, go to the teams essentially. So guys like Nathan, guys that are becoming free agents now, they cannot, or guys that are not becoming free agents, they cannot just go to any team, right? You have to be a free agent for that. And to be a free agent, you need to have 5 years of service and be over 24, which I don't think Nathan has actually. So he would fall under this thing called, so we get very MLS-y, the re-entry draft. And that's basically reverse order of standings of all the guys that were cut where the option was declined. So you've probably seen that on Twitter. Most contracts in MLS have a club option where the club can extend their existing contract by 1 year, sometimes 2 years. And so that's where you see option exercised. That means they stay on for next year, nothing changes. There's also option declined, which is, Nathan, there's been a lot of players that have been kind of, clubs are like, you've had a good run, this is it. Good luck, essentially. And there's tweets from players, I think, that basically sometimes they find out the morning of, or they find out through Twitter. So this is like, it's that harsh. It's like American sports, right? And so these guys will then go into this draft where teams can pick them up, basically reverse order of standings, and then they can renegotiate sometimes. And the first stage, that's coming up, I believe, December 12th. It's like next week, essentially. And you can look at the last few years who like it basically not much happens in those drafts, right? Most teams just pass. So then you kind of get into this like gray area. Let's call it the Bill Hamid zone, where like, what is happening to these guys? Where are they? What do they do? Are they interested in playing soccer? Are they becoming real estate agents? Are they pursuing a career in comp sci? Sometimes you don't know. And so they'll basically become in this pool, they'll go into this pool of players where teams can then like offer them trials, they can offer them like training stints. So you'll hear like, okay, here's a beat writer from New England. We're at training today and we saw trialist number 1, trialist number 2. Up all the way up until preseason games where it's like they have the starting lineup and it's like trialist 1, trialist 2. So you've probably seen that before.
Graphics.
And so like, yes. And then, so that's all fine because it's still MLS and if at that point, they'll probably still make a roster. It gets dicey. USL for younger guys, MLS Next Pro, going back down essentially. So that's
does being picked in the re-entry draft mean you have to sign with that? I mean, obviously you could go overseas, right?
Yeah, so that's the other part. So I think you can opt out of the re-entry draft, and there's very specific criteria for that. Also has to do with like tenure. But I think younger players, if they're picked, especially in stage 1, they are basically stuck with that contract. So there's stage 2 of the draft, but this is again most MLS thing ever. We have not only do we have drafts, we have stages of drafts. And basically stage 2 is then they can completely renegotiate the contract, but that team has acquired the player rights. So that's another concept, player rights, right? Like every player signs with the league, the teams just own the rights to those players. So yeah, that's all fun and games.
Did I see we'll start like name dropping actual players here. Did I see correctly that because I thought I saw after the Galaxy announced that Chicharito wasn't coming back, that they were like all of this stuff like, oh, Chicharito's a free agent. He's not really, right? Like, didn't he not have the 5 years?
I don't think he's a free agent per se. There's this MLSPA list. Let's just pull it up. MLSPA. I'll pull it up in the background. Free agency. So they announced earlier in the year, I think in September, who's kind of eligible to be a free agent. I believe Chicharito was actually Hernandez. Oh God. He is indeed not a free agent. Yeah, so he hasn't had like 5 years of service in MLS.
So like he could want to play for anyone in MLS, but it's not that simple. Yeah.
The problem there is he's a DP contract, and this is also like a rare case. Like most times, people don't want to pick up like a $7.5 million guaranteed salary contract. Like, I think he's also out of contract, so I guess you could renegotiate, but that's an interesting one. Yeah, and if it's not clear, I don't think I fully understand this to be completely transparent here either, because there's so many nuances, right? Like. And it's also changing every year because in the past we had this thing called the allocation order, which MLS got rid of this year. So that kind of came into play. If they were to go abroad and then come back, that's where they would go through that. So, but yeah, to kind of like get to your other point, like what could happen then, right? So as of now, as it stands right now, for most teams that are eliminated from the playoffs, except Seattle, I believe we know what their roster moves are. So we have this long list on Twitter. You can go I think there's an Athletic article that lists all the decisions. And on there, you see who's been either option exercised, they stay on, option declined, they're out, or they're still in talks. So that's also like teams are still negotiating. And just judging by that, so I made this chart basically where I'm just looking at the salary that was dumped by each team. So LA Galaxy dumped almost or over $15 million in guaranteed salary. So
half that is Chicharito.
And the other half is Douglas Costa. Yeah.
Douglas Costa. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yep. And then a bunch of other players. So if you see that though, that means, and there's a long tail of like smaller salaried players. That's just like a massive red sign saying rebuild, like changes are coming. To your point with Nathan earlier, San Jose also, Mensah is gone, Montero is gone, Akinola, Matthew Hoppe. well, he was barely there, but Trauco, like they dumped a bunch of like players. I think DC United got rid of almost all their center backs as well. So if you're in those teams, there's a lot that could happen, and we can maybe talk about that later. But other teams like St. Louis, they've gotten rid of like basically 3, 4 players at the very bottom of the roster that like barely even played a minute. So that's something probably like what they look like now will be very much like much more similar than what they will look like in February. So
Yeah. So the reason why I'm so hesitant is because I made a watch list basically in October
yes,
2022. And
I
this is
remember
what,
this watch
like,
list.
yes, always gets me because it feels like we're all so adamant about prices are down at the end of the season. And when the seasons start up, they'll go up. And so if you just buy a bunch of end of season guys, which here we are, at least for MLS, then when the league comes back in March, we'll all be rich. And so I went back on this list because there was a situation where like the global economy changed. And so what you bought for in October did not get you as much in February and March. But even without that, I was looking at some of the players and it just seems like every year there are a couple guys that you're like, yeah, he's safe. I'm going to get him. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it feels like out of nowhere. And I think for most people, it will come out of nowhere. You get like Maxi Morales is going back to Argentina and you're just like, what?
Well,
Or Alex Callens is going to Spain. And you're just like, all right, I didn't see that coming. And it's just like guys like that it just happens. And
yeah,
so it feels like a lot of people just kind of do some very, very basic research of like, this guy was good in MLS last year. So surely he'll be good next year. And that's it. And the list of guys, like even, and I know it ended up working out, but like Emmanuel Reynoso
oh
went
yeah,
back to Argentina and then like almost did not come back.
yep.
Thankfully he did. But it's just things like that that I feel like are worth discussing because maybe some situations change and guys just aren't going to be nearly as good next year. And I wanted to let me see if I can find it in the chat here. Kev Hurd is absolutely right that if Sean were here, he'd be like, just buy 25 Carlos Heels and you'll be fine. And I think
Mhm.
there is some validity to, yeah, just get like the best players. Surely they'll be better. We would have said the same about Reynoso though.
Yeah.
And so like how deep do you think the list actually is of like sure thing guys for next year?
Oh boy. Uh, what if you just say there is no sure thing? Like, it's complicated, right? Like, so yeah, there few thoughts. So I think it depends if we're talking about if you already have MLS guys and you're kind of selling off player XYZ that you don't want anymore, you're frustrated, or you want to pick up some other guys, like you're swapping MLS kind of like in your gallery, right? Like just moving from one team maybe that you like this year to another team that has CCL perhaps. So you're just kind of like switching stacks, selling off one, doing other. I think in that case, it's whatever. You're moving sideways, like you're treading water. Like if you sell, because like some of these effects that you mentioned, right? It's like they'll affect the entire league. And so if macroeconomically there's a boom, then yeah, even your old cards will kind of experience that like was it beta, like alpha and beta? I think it's like the rising tide that lifts all boats or sinks all boats. And so in that case, I think do whatever. Um, I think the interesting one is if you have ETH, or if you have a balance of anything, or if you're considering selling off European guys. Because I think that's where, even I think this came up with Velasco, right? Like you can buy Velasco for very cheap right now, quote unquote, very cheap, right?
Yeah.
But he's out all of next season, and I think this has been talked about before, but like that's just you're parking money in, that's yeah, useless
Right. You're
essentially.
just
And so
parking it. Yeah.
you're just parking it, yeah. And so can you have like more utility with that 0.03 or whatever? Absolutely. And so it's the same with the European guys, where I think it's worth like if you look at that, like does that watch list still exist?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I made some notes here. See, actually, I tried to be so prepared. I was gonna be PSU fans 3. I was gonna be like the new Sean. Excellent sound quality. We failed on that. I took notes. Let's go. So, but yeah, one
The
of
most
those
prepared
notes
that anybody's
was
ever been for a show.
we try. We try. I think I need it. So I have a little like bullet point here. It says essentially, if you take this watch list, this is probably great. I love how it's called buy lows. You can still buy Callan's very low now.
Yeah, you
Anyway,
can.
essentially, if you look at this, right, at some point there'll be an inflection point. So I think you can see it there, December 9th on the very left side. That's just like a decent example. Yeah. So you see like the kind of trends. So especially if you look at limiteds, because that's the most liquid. And if you have those European guys, right, you can take this kind of like watch list or this overall index as kind of like, okay, you don't need to buy at the very bottom. I think that's also very underrated. Like you don't need to buy the most dippiest part of the dip. If you get the uptrend, that's totally fine, right? Like look at that December on the left there. Like if you're like somewhere in that first hill, like, oh, it's pre Gary V, but like, oh no, that's 2022. Yeah. It's like if you're somewhere in
It's
there, right? Like it's totally fine.
December 21.
Yeah. You don't have to be on the 16th of December. You can be anywhere until early January. But like as soon as you start noticing that, perhaps that's like your trigger point. Okay. Like now, with the upside that some of those Reynoso situations, some of the contract stuff may have been resolved. But yeah.
So this part of the chart is exactly why I made the list in October, because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
we're almost like the low, this December 9th low, 12/12/21, look pretty close to the,
Yeah.
October, September, October.
Yeah.
So I was like, surely by February, we'll be up here.
Yeah.
And we weren't. And we just keep going this way. But I think obviously this had more to do with non-MLS and
Right.
like that's honestly what this list is.
saw
If I
you
remember
before
correctly,
there.
it was the top somehow a 51st player popped in. I think this was the top 51 players by L15 in America and Asia. That's it. There was nothing exotic about this list. And so when like, man, Shin Jin Ho is so good. But there it is, like Maxi Morales and Ladero and all of these guys. Ladero's prices are different reason, but like Mauricio Pereira, Yamaguchi, Jack Elliott, if we want to stick in America. And it's just like all of these guys seem very reasonable buys in the offseason. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh.
Yeah. I think there's, like even if we were to, and because some of the Morales stuff came out in like February, right? Like Reynoso, that was weeks before the season started. We're like, oh, he's not here? What do you mean he's not in Minnesota? Wait, he's in Buenos Aires? What?
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of like squirt gun emojis. And that was that. And so that's like, I mean, to be fair, that can happen anywhere. Didn't Shin Jin Ho get arrested in China? Or no, that was Sun Jun Ho. Like basically one of the really good players in China. It was like the best player got like some fraud charge. Not Shin Jin Ho. Sorry, I'm putting slandering this man here.
Yeah.
It was the one that was like really, really good in one of the CSL teams. And then he essentially got in trouble. There we go. With the government and was, this was in June. So that was mid-season. So that would always happen. That can always happen. When it comes to transfers, that's the other part, right? So if you can, so there's, I think a few people that make depth charts. So just having like at all times kind of a feel for, okay, what's moving in the rosters. Like if there's a rumor, like part of that evaluation should be, okay, we're looking at a left back for Nashville. Who's already there? Like, what do they have? Like, does this even make sense? Because the rumors, that's the next thing. Like the rumors are going to start flying like crazy. And again, this within MLS, certain teams are better at keeping things under wrap. I guess I should point this out. LAFC, like they will drop, I think Boanga is kind of the exception, but like all of a sudden there'll be like a tweet, that little like famous, the box opening with the LAFC cap. and then the next day there's an announcement, and everyone's like speculating who it could be, right?
Yeah.
Like we thought Isco was going to LAF, or I thought Isco was going to LAFC. Yeah, I've been humbled many times this year, but
Was Bale the last one that they did that with?
no, they do it with every signing, and then so
But like I
people,
meant like the true surprise.
oh yeah, Stipe Buick was like out of nowhere essentially. Kike Oliveira, yeah. So Lozano, LA Galaxy, not LAFC, but yeah. So and it's also, you have like two sides of the pond, right? Like you have the rumors that are in Europe, then you have the US side. And I think it's trending towards like the US side is more conservative. Like Tom Bogert used to tweet so many like, people are in talks, they're scouting him. Now, like just today, he announced like that FC Dallas signing, just like boom, signing complete. So that's actually one very actionable thing to do, is probably turn on notifications, but just be aware that if Tom Bogert tweets something, essentially everyone in the MLS Sorare community knows, right? Like there's no free lunch anymore. Like it's not like, which then drives people to take more risks. And I might be just like definitely speaking for myself here, where it's like, okay, here's a source of unknown quality that says LAFC are after XYZ, or Chicago is often one that's just thrown out there. I think Miami's going to have a bunch. So that's where I think it gets like super spicy.
I'm going to bring the Keith up because of the Lozano thing. There were LAFC rumors because
Yep,
he and I
absolutely
degened into some Lozano.
I had one too. I had one.
Yep. But Bogart, was like fighting people on Twitter about it. So speaking of LAFC, Germ brought up a guy who I like laughed at myself because he was like, this guy's a $4 limited, $45 rare, seems like a sure thing regardless of landing spot. When was the last time we heard the term sure thing apply to Carlos Vela?
Oh boy. Can I plead the fifth here? If I speak, I'm in trouble. Well, see, landing spot, define landing, is like his couch for retirement, a nice landing spot? Because that's probably pretty comfortable landing spot for him, right? Like, I think that's the other thing. There's a bunch of, especially if we're talking goalkeepers, right? Fry, Guzan, Willis, Clark. It's like, are these guys going to retire? I think blanket rule of thumb, I would say no. Like so far, all the ones, like there's been no retirement announcement, right? Like I think Willis extended, Guzan's back, Fry's back. So
the Guzan thing, I've seen so many people comment that Atlanta like announced that they were gonna like give him another year, but I've yet to see like the actual yes, he is 100% back. Hopefully, I just missed it. I will say that Fry is going to play forever because I've been sitting on a Stephen Cleveland for like literally 3 years. He might be on, if we had level 40, he would be on level 40 by now.
That's incredible. That's a nice one to have too. Because I think I retweeted the announcement of this, and the comments are all like, okay, Bill Hamid. What about, there's like two other keepers. I'm like, I don't know.
Here's the big one, Tim Melia.
Yeah, so good example. He did, like, his option was taken. So like, so that's the other thing. I think that's where I think you have to go to preseason to evaluate. Okay, he's on the roster, but will he start at this point? I mean, like a lot of these guys finished the year strong, to be fair. So
he's Melia particularly,
right? So odds are, like, even Steve Clark did well against in the playoffs. So he had some crazy saves. Fry, of course.
Steve Clark is one that I've looked to buy his card 100 times, and I'm just like, there's no way he lasts, and the dude just keeps playing.
He's what, 38 now? Yeah, it's like, for reference, like guys like Tim Howard, oh god, Matt Reese back in the day, like they played, like Nick Rimando, they've played to like 39, 40. So it's not unprecedented. I mean, you just have to look to South America, right? It's the same situation. Yeah. Like Armani, how old is he? Like
to get out of the out of the goalkeeper, a few people have brought up Diego Rossi, who just came back from Turkey.
Yeah.
Rossi plus Cucho. Does Cucho stay?
That's the thing, right? Like, at what point is somebody too good?
Right.
So I don't, yeah. Somebody just extended and we're like, oh, that guy could have probably, like Jesus Ferreira last year, right? Like everybody's like, yeah, he's gonna be gone. Like, and I think people are saying that this year as well, but like, he might just stay in MLS his entire life. So Cucho obviously different profile, but yeah, I think that's where the rumors will stop. Like Buanga is right now getting already like, there's one specific outlet on like the Olympic, like the OM. That's Marseille, right?
Marseille, yeah.
Okay, anyway, I think it's Lyon or Marseille, one of those two teams. Like, there's one blog that just keeps pumping out like Kai Wagner or Buanga, as like potential transfer targets. So again, like it's been absolutely quiet on. I think in this case, like Steve Cherundolo was like the coach of LAFC was asked about Buanga, like how do you see him in 2025 or 2024? Sorry, next year. And he said in black and gold. So like, I think some of these teams, like I would put Cucho in this category where like Columbus is gonna be like one of the best teams for the next like 2-3 years. Like you know, like Nancy, you have the core. They've got like what Keith brings up there, like the new winger that they got from Pachuca, which is I wouldn't call him depth. I would think he's like equal between Matan and Yeboah because those are not like top tier. Yeah, and so yeah,
It's crazy how good they are after losing Zelarayan too.
right.
Like
Also, that came out of nowhere. That was like there was nothing, absolutely nothing. It was one tweet.
So
goodbye.
There was not nothing, and I only say that because Gator Guy shared a tweet with me like it might have been, I don't think it was 2 weeks, but it might have been 1 week before the transfer. That like it was like one guy, he had like 8 followers. And he was like, this is kind of weird, but like, look, Zelarayan is Saudi. And I'm just like, yeah, but I mean, no way. And then it happened, and we were both like,
Whoa.
like we had the Weebay like gif, both of us were just like, oh, it was out there. The guy just didn't have enough followers yet.
Yeah, so I think that wasn't the LAFC thing with Lozano or like his hairdresser that Bogart was fighting with. Like, I mean, fine. Like, if the hairdresser is like 2 weeks early and nobody acts, and we don't act on it, like, I'm not gonna feel bad. But yeah, so it's also a whole new dynamic with all the like, because in the past you'd have to like list the card, right, and you'd hope that somebody would pick it up, or at some point there was like, I think Charco was the bot that picked him up after like if it was 70% of the quote unquote value that you listed at. So if like an injury was announced last offseason or like somebody went away, so to speak, like somebody would list just at like half price and immediately get snapped up by the bot. Well, now you can go to the bot yourself, and there's multiple. And if you're first, you'll get through, right? Like,
Right.
the safeguards you can't, right? There's just no way to. So
Jerome was saying Dallas have their number for Ferreira,
Yeah.
Jesus Ferreira, and are happy to hold out for that number. Spoiler alert: that number is 12 million.
So, which is pocket change for some teams, but also, will they pay that for? I'd feel good about that they're not going to pay that. Like,
Johanneton says Willis and Panico rares for $200. 4 thresholds, prices are just too low.
yeah, I mean you can do that. Buy both. Like, I think the Fry Cleveland was like, I've never done that, but like, Melia Pools Camp, like,
Yeah,
you if you really want to.
Mike, I think Cleveland actually was U23 when I bought him.
I've had Cleveland since high school, man. Jeez.
I'm just seeing what age he is on his card, because
it's gonna be 27. I want to say 26, 27. No.
he was 25 on the card I bought. All right, I feel better now.
That's still, yikes. But yeah, and then I think I'm just looking at notes real quick. One other like very random thing that I don't think anybody's ever talked about is that so a lot of us are new to MLS, right? And Sorare has a very specific window, right? because essentially MLS onboarded, keep me honest here, 2020, like
Yep.
during the MLS is back tournament. So that's only 3 years, right? And in that time frame, certain teams have been very good, and other teams have been absolute garbage.
Yeah.
But if you go back like even 2, 3 years before that, because I think we talked about this with New York Red Bulls, right? As long as we've been on Sorare, their scores have been just not.
So
There's like
bad.
no AA, like there's nothing happening, right? And the team
They
itself is
also kill
also not
everyone
that
they
great.
play.
Also true, yeah. The Zela, that was one of the last Zela in MLS moments. Like, do you play him against New York? Oof,
Mm-hmm.
wow, he went out without a bang. That's yeah. But no, my point is like, if you go back a few more years, like LA Galaxy, New York Red Bulls, these were the best teams in MLS for like a while. And so looking at, again, kind of just reading between the lines, you can call it speculating, making informed guesses, let's call it that.
Mhm.
Like LA Galaxy just dumped half their roster. That's very obvious. Like there's something being rebuilt, right? They got the LAFC like GM guy back in August or something. So that's something's happening, right? New York Red Bulls, right? They're going after Forsberg. They're going after like Leipzig guys. Um, there's been New York City to an extent too, right? Like New York City was incredible right up to COVID, and then you know here we
Now
are.
they'll get
Like
Neymar.
yeah, exactly. So they're like those big markets. Like traditionally, quote unquote, they have been like the big names, like which in Sorare, like Thierry Henry, you probably would put like Messi-esque scores if
Yeah.
I'm like guessing, right? Like goal assist, like Robbie Keane. Oh my goodness, right? So again, Toronto as well. So there's like this perception that we have just because we've looked like for a lot of us, we've looked in the last like 2 years really, really closely, but we forget what was like before COVID. And so that's one thing to kind of watch. Like if New York Red Bulls, right, if they get Forsberg right now, and then perhaps oh, Cleveland out Seattle. Sorry, I'm just looking at chats here. Oh, they waited just for this.
They did. They
That's
really did. It
that's
was like
personal.
So we're waiting for the Thursday Sorare Andrews to drop, and now, oh,
Wait, let me pull this up on
all right. Who
Twitter.
needs a goalie?
Oh my. Which that is wow. My condolences. Um, that's crazy. Did they keep Rudius as thought? Roster decisions. Oh boy.
Yes, they
But
did.
yeah, like basically it's kind of like a oh there we go. Jordan Morris is back. Ariaga is back too. There you go. Nice. Wait, scroll up to the declined. Who did they? Oh,
A Bear
Cleveland.
gone.
Hey Bear, RIP. Oh, there's a Hey Bear coming back to the to the US in a week. I heard so.
Wait, Fry. They said Fry is out of contract.
Oh, well, 12 additional players are under contract. Yeah, he's not listed on the. So, well, there you go. I don't know what we were looking at previously. So do they say who they're in talks with? So this is the other part. Like they can still negotiate until the reentry draft, I believe.
Hmm.
That's what's happening with Kai Wagner right now. That's what's happening with like Gadi Kinda in Kansas. So they do have time to like figure out a new deal before they go into like the free for all kind of pool. Because I don't think like some teams say they're in talks with XYZ, others just say like Seattle just says nothing. Classic. I would imagine they're in talks with Fry to get him like a lower like salary number. Because that's the other thing, right? Like if you think about like these are professionals that are like this is their career, and you're kind of like you expect to get like more experience to get pay increases. And in MLS, that's an issue, right? Because that's like your pay increase goes against a cap.
Yeah.
Like it's not like there's a certain amount, right? And so if you have one of the older like that Dax McCarty, right? Like it's kind of Alec Bedoya, like it's kind of hard to keep around older guys, like those veterans, because they will have like certain salary demands, and you just don't want to pay that. So I think that's kind of also unique to MLS, where like in other leagues they'd be like, oh yeah, you're gonna retire as this team, like. Whereas here it's like, yeah, you can come back after you retire and get a coaching role, but like until then, no. Like,
Our friend Gator Guy just sent me this tweet here. When
has
was this
reportedly
tweet?
extended his contract.
This was
November
a week ago.
28.
Yeah, about.
So that's
Yeah.
so who's report? Yeah. So also this morning, like I just put up like a list of like free agents. Hey, Midtjylland goal. Hey, let's go. And turns out like the top on transfer market, right? Like that's another thing I was gonna get into. Like if we could talk about outgoing, but like who can you kind of like who might come in, right? And so European players or players in European leagues that have an expiring contract in June, like basically next summer. Given more MLS teams are in CCL, like in the past, right? MLS teams would get them when they're out of contract, like get them on a free transfer. Now I think with CCL, there's like a bit more incentive to bring them in the winter so you can make a good CCL run, which then might get you into the Club World Cup. I think Hector Herrera talked about like the Club World Cup being as like the competition
Yeah,
for like North American teams, right? Because I think he played with is it Pachuca? I don't know. But he's basically played in the Club World Cup when he was in Liga MX, and he said it was like that's the goal, the dream. So yeah,
looking at this
report
list
extended.
and seeing Cleveland at 217,000, like there's no wonder they're letting him go.
Yeah, I mean, right. There was a shocking one on DC United. Derek Williams was like 820,000. I was like, good for him. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Good for him.
just like, oh my word, like that hits like the cap is 5.67 million. Like, and obviously it doesn't like fully go against that, but like, my word, that is huge numbers. And so, but yeah, like looking at the incoming, right? Where are we going with this? Like, it's one thing you can look at those out, yeah, CCL, right? There's also a bunch of MLS teams in CCL,
Yeah.
which I think, given to our original topic, we're still on topic, right? Like, that could be one sign that like I have a list here. Hold on, I'm prepared. So, Inter Miami will be in the round of 16, so that's a bit less utility. And then Crew, Columbus, or LAFC will join them, depending on who wins MLS Cup. So those two will have a bye. So they'll start in like the knockout stages of CCL.
It's great to see last place in the entire league, Inter Miami, getting to the round of 16. Thanks for the Leagues Cup.
2 leagues, 1 cup. Let's go. I miss Leagues Cup. I really do miss. Sometimes I was like last night I couldn't sleep. I'm just staring at the ceiling thinking about Leagues Cup. I'm like, what a time! Like,
what a time.
Incredible.
Leagues Cup or MLS is back?
Leagues Cup. Well, MLS is back to an extent too, but also like both. Like, there's just so many times in MLS. Like, we have so many times. Like, you're like, think of that time. Like, remember the time that like the Columbus Crew like scoreboard caught fire? What a time.
What a time.
Like, I think Pablo Maurer is like the journalist of like chronicling all these times. Like, he is so good. Like, it's like the oral history of that. He did it entire. It's like tangent. There was when Thierry Henry was in the league. There was, I don't know if it was a playoff game. I believe it was Red Bulls. I want to say DC, and it's 90th minute, 90+4, basically last play of the game. They get a free kick in front of the box, like 18 yards out, and then Thierry Henry's kind of like standing there, getting ready, and they have some other guy take it who just skies it into row Z, and the camera jump cuts to Thierry Henry's face, and it is incredible. Just like, and then Pablo Maurer did an entire oral history on like what happened there.
Right there.
Like, those are like football heritage. That's MLS for you. That's just like those are the times, Okay. So yeah, Miami, winner of Crew, LAFC. So actually, LAFC will not get into CCL if they lose the MLS Cup final. If they lose, Crew gets in, and then the Revs, Mr. Hill here, Mr. Carlos Hill, they get into the group stage. And the other teams in the group stage, second is the Supporters Shield, or like the highest Supporters Shield. So besides those two, it's Whitecaps, Nashville, Philadelphia, Columbus, or New England, depending on who wins MLS Cup, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Orlando, and Houston. That's a lot of teams. That's nearly like, I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10. I possibly miscounted that.
Yeah. So basically a third of the league.
Yeah, which is much more than the past. Like last year, it was like
Right.
4 or 5 teams, right? And so
We've
that's a
also
lot more
seen-
utility.
But we've also seen CCL just like destroy
Yes.
teams once the regular season actually starts.
Yep. So I think, yeah, again, I'm speculating here, but kind of like what's been floating around, like the fourth DP, like designated player spot, like basically Messi came to MLS. It's been going pretty much okay so far, right? Pretty good. I think all the Apple comments are like, I think they're supposed to stay, but like they're all super stoked, right? They're like over the moon with the numbers and blah, blah, blah. So I think, but it also presents an opportunity to like take it up a level, right? Like this can kind of be that like shifting point in like the growth trajectory. I think that was the idea that worked with Beckham.
Right.
I think
Sure.
they kind of want to, like the DP rule, designated player rule, was made because of David Beckham,
Because
right?
Beckham, yeah.
Because before that, there was no one who was allowed to have such a high salary. And they're like, how are we going to pay Beckham? New rule.
Change the rules.
Change the rules. MLS. And so there's a lot of talk, a lot of like rumors flying around like something will change. In my like, opinion, like the fourth DP is not going to make a huge difference. What they need is like the bottom of the roster, the depth, because they play so many games, right? Like
Yeah,
the starting 11s are great.
CCLs, yeah.
Like you don't need a fourth DP. You need like a non-college defender that makes more than like $1,000 a week to, stop Messi, stop Wanga, stop Evander. Had to sneak in Evander.
Is this the Evander year?
Yes, I mean it has to be. So Portland also dumped a bunch of salary, and they got rid of all their forwards. Like, will they find someone? Like they need like a forward that he can pass to, right?
So there are a number of reasons why I brought Evander up, but I will say that the Evander that we thought we were getting right away, we are starting to get it, and I think that's good. Let me pull up
there's some dark green in there.
Right, we see the player that we thought we were getting.
All around 33. Let's go. And so
Evander, 25.
Yeah, he's going into his prime, obviously, right?
That's right. Right. Yeah.
Diego Rubio, that's another one.
I was going to say a lot of people are very interested in about what happens to Diego Rubio.
I think for him it can only go up, to be honest. If he doesn't go to Saudi Arabia. So
are there Diego Rubio Saudi Arabia?
No.
Like, what?
Not yet, but like you know what I mean. Like there will be one. There has to be one soon. Like it's a matter of days, right? Like there's gonna be like any player XYZ, because the window is not even open for them, right? Like so, I think at this point it'd be too early. So I don't know when. Is it January 1st?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think come early January, there's gonna be just like it's gonna be a wild times. And yeah, I was gonna say like guys like Rubio, I think he has a green card, and so there comes like this human aspect of like speaking as a person who has a green card as well, on this path to U.S. citizenship, which is like, good quality of life. Like there's a lot of asterisks to that, but so like for example, like Julian Gressel, when he got traded to Vancouver, he would have lost his green card if he went to like Toronto or Montreal. But Vancouver has like this one specific part of the city that's on U.S. territory, where a bunch of expats, like Americans live that want to keep their U.S. residency but work in Vancouver. It's like an 18-mile like drive outside the city. It's like a little strip on a peninsula. I didn't know this, but that's why Julian Gressel went to Vancouver, so he could. Well, that's why he, accepted that, because he could keep his U.S. He wants U.S. citizenship. And so like those things come into play, right? Like you wouldn't just, if that's like something that's, the family part, this is where like Sorare goes like way too deep, where it's like you're following people's Instagrams. You're like, I think it's happened with Reynoso too. People are like looking at his girlfriend's Instagram and it's like, we're going too deep here. But if you want to really go deep, you can. Because I think that comes into play where why some people would like perhaps turn down an offer elsewhere for like X amount more money, because then, well, you can't really come back. That's gonna be tough. Because once that's gone, it's hard to get a new one. So
Right.
yeah.
Actually, on that topic, Mike Basson asked a question much earlier. It said, "Why do clubs not sort out the visas for foreign players in time for the season to start? It seems like there's always a few decent players who get delayed getting their visas and miss a few games at the start."
So there's a guy on Twitter called Andrew Wisnowski. I believe he used to work as a lawyer for like MLS, or like kind of like the MLS like legal department, and he has since moved on. What does it say? He is now doing. He's still a sports lawyer. Okay, whatever. But he will tweet a lot of times about like these types of situations. So today, Dallas signed that like 17-year-old. It doesn't matter that he's not 18. He just has to be 18 by the time he gets registered for a match day squad. Who would have known that? But like, so he will. I think he had some point around that. It escapes me right now. But if you like look up his timeline, you kind of scroll back to like March, February this year. Like, there's lots of factors. It depends on where the player's coming from. Oftentimes the teams kind of like they're doing their best, obviously, but like it's tough. I think it just depends case by case.
Yeah, I think also part of it is they have to be here for a certain amount of time. It's not like years, but usually if a player has come, if you've lived somewhere else for a while and you are going to move your entire family to the US, usually you don't show up the day before. But sometimes, like if you sign, then you're usually not there right away. So Ben saying Point Roberts, is the part in Vancouver.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. And I was like, this is fascinating. I would have never known this. Like so much like useless knowledge. Not useless, but like so specific. Like that's a cool trivia fun fact though.
Yeah, no, I'm just ripping Google Maps right up here.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, yeah, there it is. Look at that. Look at that. Like it's part of Washington, I guess. Yeah. Incredible.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Imagine all the stuff you get out of this show, thinking you were just getting MLS knowledge.
We got geography here. We got trivia. Hey, it's I don't know if there's many trivia Mondays, but that's okay. Tuesday could be your trivia night. So yeah. I'm just looking through the notes here.
I was going to say, while I look through the notes, I'm going to also put Frip on the spot here that if anybody has what do you think about this guy? Feel free to drop them in because people.
Should we talk process? Like, if everyone who knows about MLS disappears, or like everyone knowledge is erased, like how do we get back to like how do you do your own? How do you DYOR? Hey, it's a crypto game, right? Own your game. So, one thing again, I think we're kind of past this point at this point, but MLS contracts are not always public. There's like especially designated player contracts. Sometimes we don't even know. Like this, this is probably one of the wildest like nights I've had on Twitter, where like it was early last year where Joseph Martinez got traded to Miami. Everyone's like, wait, they have 4 designated players now, right? Is Gregore a designated player? Is Joseph Martinez and then somebody else in there? Or like, wait, that's 4. And then Taylor Twelveman. Yeah, Pizarro. Yeah, is Pizarro still a DP? And then Taylor Twelveman out of nowhere. Like I think he tweeted something and I replied something. It wasn't even snarky. It was just like, hey, isn't this 4 or something? Whatever it was, he just says no. I'm like, why? And somebody goes to the Miami official website, the intermiami.com page, pulls up the roster, and they list like player, age, number, and then roster designation. So U22, senior minimum, designated player. It says this guy's a DP. And he's like, no, that's just wrong. That's just no. And then I think at some point Tom Bogert gets looped in, and they're all like, yeah, man, you're preaching to the choir. So I guess takeaway from that is like, don't rely on, well, you can, unless you ask the player themselves, you sometimes don't know the status, the length of a contract. Luckily, we're past that part for the most, clearly not with Fry. Like, but even transfer marked, right? Like I posted something this morning and it's like, these guys are free agents. Mr. Kerry Ruiz himself is like, no, actually, this guy extended with Chivas. I'm like, what?
The
Like,
hashtag trust the team was a little tough on that one for that 4
Yeah.
DP spot with Miami.
Yeah. God,
I just saw, I wanted to bring this up because I was going through your Twitter feed earlier.
it's all over the place.
Scosmo said, can you tell me that
Yeah.
Hadebe is going to be a starter again next season and that Debassi will get a move elsewhere? Or a move, please.
Yeah.
Hadebe's gone?
Apparently. Yep. So, but Sebastian Ferreira is still on the roster because he's been loaned out. So, yeah, to be honest, like there's not much precedent of like he's also a designated player. Like he has a huge contract. Like in the past, like I think this is kind of shifting. This might be the Messi effect, honestly. I don't know if we put any like thumb on that. Like in the past, teams would just like let these guys ride on the bench. Like how many wasted designated players did like Chicago Fire have? Did like New England Revolution? Like there's a quiz. I don't know what the site's called. Like you guess every DP in MLS history. There's names on there. You're like, and then you're like, that must have been like the 90s or like 2016. You're like, what? Like Jerry Bankson for the Revs. I was like, who is this guy? There's some wild names.
MLS Players Association has a list here that you can look up.
This is nice. This is official, but it doesn't tell you how long. Wait, does it have the length? Yeah.
No.
So like, so there's not much precedent of what I was saying is like all those guys that you're like, who are these people? Teams would just like let their nice pun there, let those contracts like run down essentially. Like they didn't have the, well, let's just say balls to use a buyout or to waive them, right? Like, because I think they're still on the hook for that money if it's guaranteed compensation.
No one likes to sell at a loss, Frip.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, David Ochoa is still in my gallery. I believe. Sorry, that was loud, but I am. Yes, Benson. Exactly what Mike Baston said. That guy. He was a forward, supposed to be like. I mean, yeah. There's still a bunch of like failed DPs in the league right now, but they're getting rid of them earlier. So like guys like Douglas Costa being out, Hadebe, like even like that's kind of like new territory, at least as far as like, I can tell.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Like, is somebody going to pick up that $1 million contract? Like, I don't know. Also, this like another wild one. Like, he was a bench player
LPP.
at Miami, and then starts at River Plate. Like, what?
I have like a particular beef with LGP because I remember when he was with Atlanta, and he was just like a walking red card. Like he looked like Sergio Ramos, and you're just like every moment, or old school Pepe, and you're just like any moment this guy is going to get sent off. And then he went to Miami, and he was like okay, and then he just smashed his face off at River Plate, and I was just like, okay, never mind. Yeah, he's on loan and coming back.
Yeah, well, if Isco says he will stay at River, he's a big Argentina guy.
Isco would know.
I trust. But other River Plate center backs have been Mamana as free agent, supposedly. So like apparently even transfer marked when it says like they're going to be free agent, not necessarily true. Like Aravena, the Chilean guy, like for some reason is marked out of contract on there. He's 21. He's like just had 2 goals this weekend, like super hyped. Turns out apparently his contract is till 2 more years, but who actually knows? And that's the Chilean league, so that's
none of this all that public usually. Let's see. We've got a few questions about Talis Magno.
Yeah. So what I would love to see to this point, like also tangential to like cutting DPs, just trade them, right? Like there haven't been that many DP trades. Like if it's a big just I think Rapids have done it with Cabral where Chinetti, like LA Galaxy paid half his salary and just dumped him to the Colorado Rapids, which not the best precedent if you want to make the case that people should do that on the like acquiring side, because he hasn't been that great. But like Yeah, like send Talos Magno to like Nashville, Seattle, like so many teams that could, yeah, use
Or just
players
play him correctly. How about that?
or
How
that.
about actually just put him in the
That's
spot where he could succeed?
that's too easy. It's too easy. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
like.
So Ben said, is Luis Barraza a good enough player to start in the MLS? So I am a Luis Barraza card holder. That's probably on level 20 also. I probably bought the same time as I bought Steph Cleveland. And that one was a U23 card at one point. But Barraza, so Barraza backed up Sean Johnson. And then when Sean Johnson left, he became the starter. Another Sean Johnson backup, Brad Stuver, left and became a very good player
That's
somewhere
true.
else. I don't expect the same for Barraza, but man, could use some more utility again.
Yeah, yeah, true. So it's like the what do you call it? Like how was it to say? Like essentially, like I don't know. Like you said like you don't watch many games, right? Because I think I'm the same way. I spend like hours on hours in like the stats and like the Twitter and like whatnot, but like actually watching games, I get try to do it more so now, but like I don't like I'm not glued to the TV like watching
Mhm.
MLS 360 every weekend. So like for that type of question, is he good enough? I mean, you can pull up American Soccer Analysis. They have like the goalkeeper goalkeeping stats. That's what I would point to. But I try to like reserve my own judgment. So like in this case, like before the moves were announced, like okay, Freeze has played the past games. Point one, that Freeze is probably the starter, and then they signed him to an extension. So like who gets the contract extension? Often young players. Like that's something to like also keep note of because that
Mhm.
means like they're firmly in the plans, which is all you can ask for. But yeah, so I don't know.
I think you could just make the argument that they're goalies, and so who cares?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Does he start? Then he's in.
GF. Just GF.
Let's see. Johannaton's asking about Drew Yearwood at Nashville. Did he go there?
He did.
Or
Yeah.
is he going?
So there's been actually we should mention the MLS transfer window won't open until like December 11 or 12. So there's been trades that are like Yearwood to Nashville. I think Lima to
The Revs.
Revs. Yes, thank you. Like those are probably done,
Hmm.
or the other one, the Chicago Fire, the Tom Barlow. Those are done, but they won't be made official by the teams until like that day. And I imagine that like there used to be like a 6 hour trade window right before the reentry draft. I think they've gotten rid of it. It's like now like a 48. Now it's 48 hours, I believe, or it's just like entirely open. But there's probably going to be like this time next week, Tom Borgert's going to be like on fire,
Hmm.
tweeting out left and right, a bunch of moves. So yeah, like my favorite rumor is like, is he coming back to MLS? Like Horvath or like
Yeah, you do love that one.
Jonathan Brooks. I have a John Brooks card now. I have a John Brooks rare and super rare. And then
Ooh.
I see that San Jose Earthquakes have released basically Nathan, like Mensah, like half their defense. So like, could this be the time? I don't know. So like,
DC United did the same.
yeah, exactly. Oh, I would hate that though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Andy's
Horvath.
here.
So like
Nathan Horvath.
to the again, Horvath is from another point, kind of like sometimes with these drafts, like again, it's coming back to the human aspect, but like look where players are from. If they have a choice, if they're in free agency, or if they like fall through the entire like waiver process, like some of them just go to like the team that's closest to their hometown. It's like that stupid, right? Like Tim Reams from San Luis, by the way. Just saying. Um, yeah, so like I think John Brooks was actually born in Berlin, so this doesn't apply here. But
Yeah.
yeah, like Donovan Pines, like another guy, we're like he's amazing, like from the Sorare mindset. Like Donovan Pines are like
The early Donovan Pines
yeah,
auctions I remember were some of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like
yeah,
I'm going to venture to say that his rare was like well over 1/8.
yeah. I mean, I was hyped for that. Like I just didn't think it would go that high, but like he was like an MLS fantasy, like whenever he plays, like absolute legend. Oh my. That's like ski jumping right there. That's a
Yeah,
nice
there we
little
go. Number
ramp
one
there.
went for 1.07,
What is,
0.959.
these are like people you know. Basil
Yeah,
bot? I saw a basil bot in there.
these are people you know.
Wild. These are real people. Ah, yeah. And that's with DC, by the way. So this is not the best. Yeah, end
Right.
of year waivers, free agency, re-entry draft. Yeah, so I guess waivers is like where the contract stays, and then re-entry is like people who have quote unquote cleared waivers. And there's different stages of being able to renegotiate the contracts. Where I think
Mhm.
stage 2 is just like you can completely, start from scratch.
I think one of the other see where he's from rumors recently was Georgi Mihalovic back to
Oh yeah,
Chicago.
yeah. I like that one too. Yeah. So the ones I picked, I put like a small list, like just kind of combining that, like people that are out of contract that are U.S. nationals or Canadian or Mexican in 2024, but it's mostly U.S. players. I had down Brooks, Vines, Sam Vines, Ethan Horvath, Julian Green, and Terrence Boyd. So make of that what you will.
I was
If you
a
want,
I was a Sam Vines card holder for a while.
nice. He's also
I
from
can't
Colorado.
I can't see Green coming back.
No,
Not even coming
that
back. He's not
well,
even. Is he?
he's never been
I
in
thought he
MLS.
was another German-born.
He is, yeah. But he would come to MLS as like a DP. So like if you ever
Oh,
played MLS on a football manager, like internationals, you have a limited amount of international spots, like 8 or 9, right? So like getting somebody like Julian Green, if you can kind of sneak it like under the DP threshold, like that would be really, really valuable in MLS. Like especially with his position, like that kind of like playmaking midfielder. I think every team would be interested in that. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen. I don't think there's even been like talks about it. So,
I'm going
but
to
what would be
correct
cool.
myself. According to the always correct Wikipedia, he was born in Tampa.
Mm.
Shout out to Gator Guy too.
Tampa Bay Rowdies. He's going to USL. No,
Oh my God. Speaking of USL, the question that everybody wants to know: what is up
Bill
with Bill
Hamid.
Hamid?
Oh, I don't know. I'll keep tweeting it at like the extra time guys. Like I think Tom Bogert like sometimes like picks up on it in jest. We don't know, but he's training, right? He's like with the Loudon.
I just remember that he was adamant about playing in Europe, and just where did he go?
Oh, somewhere
Oh, how
in
did we
Denmark.
forget his
Was it
2 years
Nordsjælland?
and one appearance at Midtjylland? I forgot. I should have
Midtjylland.
known.
Yeah, yeah, a legend. Do you have a Bill Hamid Midtjylland jersey?
I wish. I wish.
Is it on your Christmas wish list?
I.
I'll
I'll have
call
to ask.
Larry. I'll call Larry. I'll let
Yeah,
him
yeah, yeah.
know.
There we go.
Thomas
Here's a good one.
Hasal. It's like, yeah. Hasal
Got his
Ochoa.
USL written all over it.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think some Canadian beat writer was like, yeah, he might find a spot in like Canadian Premier League. So,
I saw that one and I
which
was just like, no, please, no, no, no.
actually he might come back from the grave simply because there are two Canadian teams in like CPL teams in CCL next
That's
year.
right.
I think Halifax and like another Canadian Premier League team. So we might just get like random midweeks of like guys that you haven't heard of in years. Like he's covered now? What?
It's like the Asian Champions League, and all of a sudden you're
Exactly.
like, oh,
Oh, he's back.
he's back.
Never a doubt. Yeah. So yeah, all these
We got
goalkeeper
two questions about
questions.
Pantemis. Wow.
I yeah. Um Again, like look at like their like stats. I think Pantemis has like Canadian national team history, which
Yeah.
like speaks towards him being a good enough player, right? So the problem is like with the Canadian
I
teams,
think
they
Hazal
have keepers.
had it too.
Yeah, like usually like Vancouver, they have Takaoka now. Like maybe that's the surest bet. I don't know. Anyway, uh, and then Toronto has Sean Johnson, and then Montreal. I guess they're going that's yeah. Montreal is like a bit sketchy. So clearly they don't want Pantemis. So
Right.
oh, I
I
remember.
sold,
Oh God,
what's his name? Sirois? Was that his name?
yeah.
Jonathan Sirois?
I don't.
So I
Yeah,
sold him to SR Monkey actually, thinking that Pantemis was going to come back because Pantemis was out.
I thought so
Sirois
too.
became the starter, and I was like, Pantemis was coming back, and I was like, I told him, I was like, Pantemis is coming back, and he's like, I don't think so, and I'm like, risks on you, and then the price doubled.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, there's a yeah, and like when we get into like the intra-league trade rumors, like, because then it's basically like, it's dominoes, right? Like one team
Yeah.
gets rid of a keeper, like goes somewhere or like gets injured, they poach another starting keeper, then it's like, oh, this inexperienced backup, is he going to be number one, or are they going to get a Miller or a Bono, like Bono, like, I don't know. Yeah,
Ben Johnson, Forge United Hazel midweeks versus a team.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they'll get guillotined, lose
Yeah.
3-0. He can't handle the tree behind the goal. It's too much. Did Violetta qualify? Please tell me they did. I don't know. I'll have to look after.
That's going to be a deep dive to figure that one out.
Yeah. They might have a bye because the Caribbean Champions League winner, which that exists, that might be fun. They also get a bye anyway. So yeah, it should be active, I would say.
Yeah. Here's the last question for you, even though the season is not even over yet. But are there any teams you're expecting to be good next season that weren't this season?
Oh, is it early? I mean, if it's this early, nobody's gonna come back and like it doesn't count, right? Like my bets is San Jose. I like San Jose. There is some vested interest with like them getting a good center back that may or may not be John Anthony Brooks. I don't know. But I like San Jose is like, and to be fair, when I like first like looked at that, I was like, Nathan is so solid. Like Nathan plus Daniel. Like Daniel is like the stats wise the best keeper, like in terms of like expected shots saved, whatever.
Yep.
It's like Nathan plus Daniel plus Guezo, great, like spine down the middle. Rodriguez is great. They purchased him, so like, okay. But yeah, so that's one. I think Portland, if and only if they figure out their forward situation. I can see NYCFC, like the teams that's what I was saying earlier, like the teams that have kind of been on the slump, like NYCFC, Red Bull New York, and LA Galaxy. Like to an extent, Seattle, I think could be good. I don't know. Like it's lots could happen. Before like there could be rule changes, like like new ownership maybe. I don't know. Like I'm fairly confident though that Colorado is gonna suck.
So there was one team that I noticed that is very near the bottom that you did not say.
Inter Miami. Oh yeah. I mean, so
I feel like they should be better. Just like
absolutely.
I just have a feeling they could be better next year.
Yeah. Also, to also add on that, they had a penalty from they actually did have 4 DPs at one point. Pellegrini, the whole Pellegrini situation.
Oh, Pellegrini.
Miami has been operating like this up until this like December with like a allocation money penalty. Like so they've had like basically think of it as less cap space. Like so that's gonna go away. So they're kind of like back and they've done all this with the penalty. So like
Right.
yeah, like I mean I literally see a tweet about Suarez up here right now. So like expect Suarez to be there. Yeah. That could be they'll be old and then maybe it's something you pick up as they're in CCL too, which like
I was just about to say they're CCL.
this is can you imagine Messi in Haiti? Oh, wow. Messi in like there's a lot of like Messi in XYZ.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
Right.
Well, did Ronaldo ever play in that ACL game that was like in Iran? Oh, he had like a last minute injury, I think he pulled out.
He might have.
But yeah, it was like the video of like the fans running after the bus.
That's right. Yeah.
So
yeah, I actually don't even know who would play. I mean, whether he played or not.
Man.
Yeah, before we have the will he play on turf, we're going to have will he play on a hot night in Haiti.
But like that's I think somebody mentioned on their podcast like will he play more than 20 games next year? Like I'm fairly confident he will. Like in the sense of like if he's healthy, I think he's gonna play. He's gonna want to play. Like he doesn't like even being subbed out. Like how many minutes will he play? Is like he tends to play 90s.
Yeah,
that's what he does. That's why he's the best. Like so yeah. That's
he very much seems like a player who wants to always play. I mean, there are some guys, Carlos Vela, who you're just like, he's not going to play today.
It's a bit cold out,
But, yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree 100% with Charlie here. Let's be honest, MLS is going to bend every rule in the book to make Miami win MLS. To be honest, they don't even need to really bend them. They could just rewrite them.
Yeah. Yep, they just make the new rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, like, you can make a bunch of rules, but at the end of the day, like, no one's going to be able to take advantage of it, like, as much as the teams that are willing to do so. Like, like that extra, like, ownership spend is going to become so, like, which I think is what's held the league back so far. Like, that's why they've been going so slow. Like, teams like, who am I going to throw under the bus? Like, Colorado, of course, obviously. Kind of like some of the old school teams that have, like, not been willing to put the money in.
Yeah.
If you add more DPs, like, that's just going to increase the gap, which would be great for Sorare, actually. Like, because parity just kills SL5.
Parity kills us, yeah.
So we're moving into a more Sorare friendly. Oh, boom. MLS is getting better next year, actually. Buy now. But, like, look, like, less parity, more money coming into the league, whether that's from Apple, from the ownership, like, that's happening. From transfers out, like, I mean,
Sure.
But then again, Chicago sold what, like, Duran and Slovenia for 30 million? What did they have to show for that?
One guy that I can't believe we actually haven't mentioned yet that should make Major League Soccer plenty of money is Thiago Almada.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, some of those, and there's more and more, actually, that's the other thing, the U23 roulette. Like, are you going to pick up Facundo Torres, Ricky Puig? Are you going to pick up Almada? When those rumors come, that's when you really start sweating.
Yeah.
Because then, like, the incentives are aligned sometimes, right? Like, if you're a young player, odds are you want to go to Ajax, to PSV, you want to go to, like, a European league, make that jump. So it's a bit different from, like, going to Saudi and, like, that type of stuff. So, like, I don't know. Like, that's why, maybe prices are as low as they are. But yeah, it is what it is.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's good now that we have 69 live viewers. So I think this is a good time to say goodbye. Thank you to everybody for joining. If you could please like the video, maybe hit that like button until we get to 69. Subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Shout out to Quinny. Frip, thank you so much for filling in today, or coming on today, also filling in for Sean. And I will say, go follow Frip, SorareUSA on, I was about to call it X, but I'll call it Twitter again.
Yeah.
Twitter Maxi here. But go follow him. As he said, he was like, my Twitter feed is a bit of a mess. It's only a mess because he's organizing MLS for us. So
we try.
Just understand that. But anyway, Frip, thank you very much. And everyone, good luck out there.
Yeah. May the odds be in your favor.